Siriu is a upright cut leaf, which is unusual. Most of them are dissect them and pretty much in a weeping. So there's a couple pictures here of what the plant looks like in summer. Upper right hand or picture there shows a picture of the actual leaf. So you see it is somewhat cut leaf. And then bottom picture, I've never really noticed the plant in the fall, but you can see it's got good fall color. And then the picture by the van is what these plants look like now. They are in 3 gallons. They're in that 36 to 48 inch. This is a healthy 48 inch. So the price is the same as the Carasagagua. As with most maples, this is going to be in a zone 5 to zone 8. They're around 10 to 15 foot tall, and I'd say 8 to 10, 8 to 12 foot wide. So it's more of an upright, more of a vase shape. So you can see in the pictures. And like maples in general, you're going to need a medium well-drained site. You're going to need to keep them moist in the dry part of the summer. The rest of the year, you just need to make sure that they're well-drained. So that was the first one. Notice the Stilby Chocolate Shogun. This is one that we added a couple years ago. Main reason for growing this one is the dark purple foliage. You see in the pictures, the one picture I pulled off the internet, you've got the pink fading to white flowers, and you've also got the foliage. The lower left, you can see what ours look like in midsummer. So this plant holds its color good throughout the year. It's a nice dark purple foliage, like typical of a Stilby. It's pretty bulletproof. So this is a new plant a couple, 3, 4 years ago. Hardiness, they're classifying, I believe it says zone 3 to 7, and it's going to be 2 to 3 foot in height. That's going to include the flower bloom in there, about 2 foot wide. Flower is listed as pink, but as you can see here, it does fade to a white. They will tolerate wet conditions, but they need to be well drained. So if you're going to put them in an area where there's standing water on occasion, you run the risk of ground rots, and especially in the winter, if it's wet, you're going to run into that same issue. So it does need to be well drained. Next up is Coreopsis Cream Brulee. This one, when it first came out, it was touted as an improvement of moonbeam. It is a sport of moonbeam. Sport means someone found it growing on the plant, and then they propagated it from there. It is way more of an aggressive grower than what moonbeam is. The foliage is not as fine of a fern leaf, and it does stay a little bit lower to the ground. It's not quite as upright, and it is a little bit more spreading from what we've seen in production. Flower color is more of a bright yellow. This is only going to get 1 to 2 feet high. Like most Coreopsis we've talked about in the past, the common name is tickseed, and it's also a prairie plant. So it will tolerate dry conditions, medium to dry on soil. It does not like wet feet, so just remember that. One of the issues that we see with moonbeam over the years is it is a little bit susceptible to powdery mildew. This plant is a lot more resilient. It's resistant. Just remember, resistant does not mean it does not get it. It's just less likely to get it. So, good little plant. We've had it around for a while. We're about to have some go into bloom that are in the enhanced areas. So last year, we've had Gaillardia, actually, in one of the descriptions I read. It's a plant that everyone loves, but it can be a very tough plant to love from a growing perspective. It does not tolerate wet at all. So if you get a wet ground and it's excessively wet throughout the year, it's probably going to rot off. If you give it too nice of a growing condition, in other words, you're going to give it the ultimate, and then you give it a little too much fertilizer, it will rot off as well. It becomes loose and floppy in a can, it'll just break off. So you have to kind of grow it a little on the lean side. You have to make sure you keep it dry. These were some sample plants. A number of you guys commented on them last year. They were in range 3, range 4. They are on the bench. One of the things in there is we don't do a lot of maintenance work on them. This plant, when it started blooming, bloomed all year long, clear late into the fall. Spin top red and the yellow one. The yellow has a yellow tip on it. And then these red ones, you can see the picture here. These are all new genetics, so they're a little bit better plant than what some of the older Gaillardias were. They will start blooming in May and going to fall. I think the next one should be the yellow one. Should we have a picture in? Okay, there we go. nice and short, 12 to 15 inches high, and they're also listed as a zone 4 to 9. Sedum neon is one that we've added in for this spring. This is one that we've grown in the past. It's very similar to Autumn Joy. It's a little bit more pink in color, as you can see here. Like with most of the big leaf sedums, it's going to be in that 1 to 2 foot high and wide. This was initially touted as an improvement over Brilliant, which is more of a purple. One of the things to note here on the right hand is the fall color. The flowers are just about spent. If you look in there, you can see some brown heads. But the thing there was the yellow foliage, which is something that I've never heard anyone talk about fall foliage color on sedum. So this is a nice little tidbit on that one as well. Lower left is the plants that we have for sale right now. This is a good border plant. It's just a good overall sedum. Like I said before, with big leaf sedums, you got to keep these in a dry area as well. They are susceptible to, especially if water lays on them on a continuing basis in the summer. If the water lays on those leaves, it will lead to botrytis and some other disease issues. So when customers get them on their lot, probably the best thing to tell them to do is water them early in the morning. Do not water them late in the day and have that water lay on those leaves all night. You're setting yourself up for a major issue. We threw some pictures in of some of the newer bare-root roses. I think Danny will do a little bit on a marking of it later, but this is Cherutini. This one we did have last year. You can see there's a flower in bloom down there at the bottom. Most of these are green bud, which is, in my mind, the ideal time to get them out. That way you've got plenty of shelf life on the garden center lot, and as they just start to open, help people to see what they are and move them down the road. So here's Color Cocktail, which is, if you recall, this one is bicolor. It does open, and then as it fades throughout, it also changes color. So this is a rather unique rose. Had this one last year as well. Coral Knockout. You remember last year we had a peachy and coral. I believe Dave's got a picture of the peachy in. So these are nice full plants, green buds. This is also from bare root production this spring. So some Miracle on the Hudson. This is coral. There were a couple colors added. Coral is similar to Coral Knockout, except for it's in the Miracle on the Hudson series. And the next one is watercolor, which is more of a light pink. Up on it. Red Streamer is another red one that we added. This is bare root. This is just a good red flowering rose. We had these as trial plants. There again, most of the trial plants we don't do a lot with, see what kind of abuse they can take. This one held up really well. Sunset Horizon's another one that we had last year. You can see they're just starting to flower, so this is the ideal time to move these.
There she is.
There's the watercolor right at the end. And whipped cream is another one of the newer ones we added this year, so you see all these added.
Good morning. What do you got for us today?
All right, so we'll jump right into it. First off, we got an X-berry for you. White lights. Even though it's called white lights, it does have a little tiny blush of pink into it, pale pink. We really like X-berries because they're very adaptable, great for tough areas, great for, they can go into wetter, tougher soils if you need be. Really can go up there as far as zones. We got some good availability on this one here, 500, and the size is looking real good. We're pushing that 22-inch size. You can see there from the photo, really loaded with buds there, and they will bloom, later on here in May. So we got some time to get them out the door. Where the regular azaleas are really blooming right now, got a little bit of time here, so let's keep pushing those. Next, we want to hit the dogwoods again here. This one is the Golden Shadows, the alternifolia. We dug a few of these for stock. We talked about these a few weeks ago, but you can see here they've started to break growth. Actually, Gary is out there right now, spacing these out, cutting them open. But we do have them on Q code. We got some 60-inch and 72-inch. available. So we really like to get those moved out. So you can see there from the photo, looking really good. Nice specimen quality plants in a nice package there. You know, we really like the bandwidth. Main reason it is non-invasive. It doesn't have a seed and has really good resistance to rust, and we've really seen that here in the nursery. Haven't really seen any rust issues, so that's a great deal for that one there. You get a plume in it on, you know, late summer, like most of the grass do. Very adaptable grass, very tough grass. You can see that's a, you know, a live photo, you know, just taken the last couple of days. You know, very aggressive right off the mark. But you know, it is more of a compact grower, but it really starts off right away in the spring, and it starts showing off that great banding. So, you know, just a great selection there, and we have 1,700 of those available. So got good availability there on that one. Next is variegata. That one there is the old standby. We have 750 of those available. You can see there, they've really pushed out over the last week, starting to show some, you know, some good growth there, starting to look like something. You know, this one here, a lot of the grass, you do have to have a spray program in place. If you're going to keep them for very much time on the lot, you need to be spraying for rust. Copper sprays are the easiest and the safest and the best to go with. But if they're going to have any kind of overhead type irrigation, that's a good note to go with. There are other fungicides you can use. That's up to the individual, but you know, you should have a program in place if you're going to keep them on the lot for any period of time. We do spray them here. They've already had sprays, so they're going out the door with the spray, but, you know, sprays only last so long. If they're going to stick around, you need to keep up with the sprays. So good grass. We got some quantities there we'd like to move through. Next is Juniper Old Gold. You know, Old Gold, Gold Coast, they're very similar. Some people like one over the other. We just stick with Old Gold. I think they're very interchangeable. You know, with this one here, we'll just continue with the sprays. It's important if you are doing junipers, the same thing. If you're going to keep them on your lot, especially, you know, most people are going to have overhead type irrigation. It's very important to have a spray program. You know, there again, copper sprays do very well for blight. There are other types of chemicals you can also use. Also, you know, you want to keep these plants out in the open. You want to keep good air movement around them. A big no-no with junipers is kind of planting them or putting them in an area where they're getting too much shade. They're not getting air movement. They are susceptible to tip blight, so you can get a lot of problems with junipers in general. Old Gold, we selected it. You know, Old Gold seems to, in the selection that we have of Old Gold, seems to do very well with tip blight. So we've had pretty good luck with it, but you still have to have a maintenance program. But we have a great looking crop. Next, we got the next crop of Mountain Fire we've been able to move into. We're past the bloom, and now we're starting to show that new growth pushed out. You got that beautiful red color coming on there. You know, we're just at a 12 to 15. It's not a huge oversized plant, but a nice fresh looking plant, got great roots on it. With, you know, Andromeda or Paris, you have to be very careful with site selection. This plant likes very well-drained soils. It does not like wet feet. It naturally grows in shale-type soils, cliff areas, mountainous regions. So although it does, you know, it's an understory plant, and, you know, it tends to sometimes like kind of wet environments, but its root system really needs to stay well drained. So it's kind of transposed where the foliage can take a little bit of humidity, but its roots need to constantly be well drained. They can't sit in water. We do keep them in minimal heat to avoid any issues. We suggest protection when they're outside. You know, protection looks like a building, or if they have to be out in the open, you would have to like do some kind of burlap protection or something like that. But in the nursery, we go with minimal heat in the nursery. But looking great, and you know, for people who love the mountain fire, we got availability there. Next, Syringa Tiny Dancer. We are kind of limited with lilacs in general, but we do have availability on 5-gallon Tiny Dancer. You can see here where the flowers are forming, and I would expect that we're going to start seeing those flowers open any day now. You know, you can see from the photo on the left that the type of color you would expect, very fragrant flower. It's kind of a more compact grower, definitely more compact than a vulgaris would be. We like it because of that compact growth, and it's got great fragrance. With lilacs in general, this time of year is kind of critical, especially in a container. When it's up out of the ground, you really have to protect them from frost, from wet, cold weather. Copper sprays are important. We do that here in the nursery before they're shipped out, and we suggest that that is continued on the lots, or at least protected from frost and heavy wet weather. So. Summer Snowflake is up next. Summer Snowflake's big claim to fame is kind of in the name. It's a summer bloomer. It will repeat. We have found to really get a good repeat, if you really want it to repeat, a real light trim in June will really bring on just a voracious rebloom in July. So if you really want to spur on that repeat bloom, give it a light trim, and it'll really come on in July. And then obviously, if we have kind of a dry period, you'd want to give it a little bit of kick in the landscape, a little bit of water if you can, or whatever. That'll bring it on and bring on a real good repeat bloom. But it'll do it even without the trim. We have a great looking crop out there. We do protect these. You know, we definitely suggest that these get protected. We have found that you can't go without protection in a container. Even in the landscape, I would suggest kind of a semi-protected area in the landscape. But, you know, its great claim to fame is it'll start blooming here mid to late May, and it will just keep reblooming through, usually in sometime in July. It just depends how hot the summers get. When it if we really get a real hot summer, that'll kind of shut down the blooming. So in August there. So and then we should have one more, I think. Marisi, there we go. Marisi, this is, you know, kind of become the old standby. We really love it. Great shape. You know, it gets a little wider than it does tall. We got an excellent looking crop. There again, extra winter protection is the key, especially in container. And also, Matt here has really stumbled on fertility with this. This plant does not like high fertility, so and with several other viburnums. So throwing a lot of fertilizer at this plant, you're not doing it any favors. Very low amounts of fertilizer really are the key. It does not like certain types of fertilizer. I mean, we could spend days talking about the types of fertilizer viburnums like. We're not going to do that here. But just to suffice it to say, really stay away from putting a lot of fertilizer on a lot of these viburnums in general, fragrant viburnums, the tomentosum varieties. Probably I wouldn't even tend to, if you're in a garden center type situation or a landscape situation, I would tend not to fertilize them at all, unless you're a real grower out there. And then you can always give them our number. We could talk them through any issues they may have. So we got a great looking crop. You can see there loaded up with nice foliage pushing out. And we got good availability on that 300 plus, and I would expect we're going to be adding more here in several weeks. They're pushing on real good. So, and that should be the last one, I think.